Okay, we're going to talk penalties for violating the letter of the law. I made a meme and said something about any the best constitutional scholar, when referencing the law, will use the letter of the law. So, in the spirit of the law, we can all hear, see, say, and hear the same thing. And there was LOLs and laughing faces, but see, what people don't realize, and I even posted that there are penalties for violating the letter of the law. But see, it's just that everybody's so used to people violating the letter of the law, they find it acceptable. I find it highly unacceptable, and always wondered why these people explaining the law, when they do, are totally devoid the letter of the law. And once again, I will incite the spirit of the law so that we all see, say, and hear the same thing. And you can hold me to the letter of the law, and that is I will you, and I strongly remind you the penalties of violating the letter of the law. And that's what we're going to go over. Okay, penalties for violating letter of the law. Very greatly depending on the specific statute or regulation, but generally include fines, imprisonment, and civil penalties like monetary judgments. For example, a federal threat made through mail could lead up to a 20-year prison sentence, while copyright infringement could result in significant fines and up to 5 years in prison. Penalties can be assessed through civil action by government agencies through criminal prosecutions. Examples of penalty for specific violations: federal corruption. Violations of federal corruption laws, such as those listed under U.S. Code 216, can result in imprisonment for up to 5 years or significant fines. Document frauds. Penalties for document fraud under 8 U.S. Code 1324C can include fines for each document that is a subject of violation. I was explaining that to my friend John James. He was showing a lot of document fraud committed by attorneys and allowed in the court, knowingly and willingly. I was discussing the conspiracy against rights under the color of law, and I was explaining to them there's a lot of things they aren't doing that they were supposed to do, a lot of things they were supposed to do in the very beginning and didn't. And so he's amassing a whole lot of stuff that I talk about and throwing it at the courts in every which way he could. Assault on an official. Usually a deadly weapon while assaulting a government official could lead to a $10,000 fine or up to 10 years in prison. Extortion, blackmail, sending ransom, or extortion demand via mail is federal crime that can vary. Maximum prison sentence up to 20 years. Copyright infringement. Willful copyright infringement can lead to criminal penalties, including fines up to $250,000 and up. If there is an issue of a notice of penalty of offenses, okay. Factors including penalties, willful intention violations often carry more severe penalties than unintentional ones. Nature of the violation, the severity of potential harm to individuals or the public can influence the penalty. Prior offenses. A person or entity with prior record of similar violations may face harsher penalties. Enforcement body. Penalties can be civil penalties sought by government agencies like the FTC, or criminal penalties imposed after criminal conviction. What are the consequences of violating the letter of the law? Breaking the law carries consequences ranging from fines, probation and imprisonment to lasting impacts or reputation for future opportunities such as difficult securing housing, credit, and employment. Severities, consequences depends on the nature of the offense, with serious crimes, violent felonies often resulting in lengthy prison sentence, while minor offenses may lead to community service or smaller fines. Beyond legal penalties, individuals may experience social and economic hardship, including strained relationships and financial burdens. Okay. Penalties for violating the letter of the law. Okay, let's go here. Okay. Okay. The letter of law refers to a strict literal interpretation of a rule, law, or regulation focusing on the precise wording rather than the underlying intent or spirit. It contrasts with the spirit of the law, which emphasizes the purpose and aim behind law's creation. Following the letter of the law means adhering to what is explicitly written, while violate it means not following the written rule precisely. Okay, so it's not that hard to understand. So when people, I've had people try to explain the Constitution to me, told me what the forefathers meant when they wrote it. They got a little upset when I asked them, "Are you Mr. Peabody or are you Sherman?" And if you want me to believe that, we're going to have to get in that Wayback Machine, go back in time and talk to the forefathers and ask them how come they didn't write it. Why did you not write what you meant instead of leaving it up to people to figure it out? But the letter of the law would strongly debate that, negate that, and refute that. Okay, people, so there are penalties for violating the letter of the law. Not that hard to understand. So when you look over any of these laws I read to you, that's why I read them to you word for word to the letter. Otherwise, I would be violating the letter of the law. I couldn't tell you what it's meant by what is written, because that's up to you. What your eyes see, what you say and hear upon reading this, is the explanation in itself. And people have tried to give me their interpretation of the law. It's they literally get upset when I mention the penalties for violating the letter of the law, and they go silent. Okay. So I just thought you should know, I really don't care what other people think. I care what you think, people that are listening and that are willingly and knowingly going after what is theirs, their birthrights, guaranteed in the United States Constitution. As a United States citizen, those are your birthrights. Anybody trying to take that away from you, that's deprivation of rights. That's against the law. Look up deprivation of rights. And when more than one person joins in on this, they conspire together. It's called a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. One cannot take the oath and then cast aside to whom that oath was dedicated to. That oath to the Constitution was dedicated to serve and protect we, the people. Legally, one cannot do what's in self-interest, interest of the parochial interest. It's against the law. So there's so many laws being made that are repugnant to the United States Constitution, And any law repugnant to the United States Constitution is null and void, cannot exist, cannot be enforced. Look it up. It's on the net. Laws repugnant to the United States Constitution. That's violating the oath. Knowingly and willingly. Violating the oath. Thus, committing a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. And we go through that every day. Ever since the Constitution was written, it's rarely enforced. And I don't see why people are I mean, this isn't happening yet. I when I read this when I was 10, it is based on the principle, the rule of law. The rule of law is a principle where all individuals, institutions, and entities are accountable to public promulgated, equality enforced, and independently adjudicated laws that are consistent with international human rights principles. Key elements include equality. Key principles include equality before the law, transparency in legal process, independent judiciaries, accessible legal remedies. And I've been telling a lot of people how, since I've been doing this stuff, they've been pulling back on a lot, and that's not in the public interest. That's in the interest of the bar, which is illegal. Accessible legal remedies and accountability of government officials to the law. And I'm showing on legal reform all these laws that aren't happening. Nobody's enforcing them, and before they will, you got to file a complaint. And when you file a complaint, they tell everybody that you're filing a complaint against, and then they come after you. It's ridiculous. I was hiding and on the run for a while. It's important. It's important lies in preventing. Transparency in the legal process, independent judiciaries, accessible legal remedies, and accountability of government officials to the law. Its importance lies in preventing arbitrary rule, promoting justice and freedom, and fostering stable, prosperous, and equitable societies. Core principles: supremacy of law. Law, not arbitrary or individual preference, governs everyone, including those in authority. There it is. I'm talking about the founding principle of the Declaration of Independence in the United States Constitution. In a nation of laws, the rule of law is king. Legally speaking, of course. Equity before the law. All people are treated equally under the law. You know that's not happening. Without privilege or discrimination. Fairness and predictability. Laws should be clear, accessible, and consistently applied so people know what to expect from the legal system. And you don't. You don't have the ability to give informed consent. The lack of reasonable knowledge, or as I say, the lack of legal knowledge to make an informed decision is what's required to give informed consent. And informed consent is a legal requirement before a case can proceed in a court of law. Okay? So I'm doing my best to give you that informed consent. And it's required by the legal system itself. So I'm just telling you what they're supposed to tell you. Accountability. Those in power are held responsible for their actions within the legal framework, and citizens are also accountable for their compliance with the law. Independence of judiciary. Courts and judges must operate independently to adjudicate cases impartially. That's why all judges are legally required to be apolitical. It's in the Code of Judicial Conduct. It's forbidden to let that political crap come into court. It's also a violation of basic obligations of public service. Independent judiciary, legal certainty. Law should be stable and predictable to allow people to plan their affairs. Why it matters. Prevents arbitrary rule. Promotes justice and freedom. Okay. Rule of law. Oh. Penalties for violating rule of law range from fines and imprisonment for civil and criminal infractions to loss of public office, disqualification from public service, and even the death penalty in cases of severe offenses like bribery or murder committed under the color of law. The specific penalty depends on the nature and severity of the violation, which penalties escalating for repeated offenses. Wow. 34. Never mind. Intent to defraud or circumstances involving death or serious harm. I'm seeing that on the internet every day, all day. And long before there was ever the internet. Types of penalties. Criminal penalties. These are punishable for crimes against the state or the United States that typically involve fines and or imprisonment. Fines, monetary penalties, which can vary in amount depending on the statute. Imprisonment, confinement, local jail, state, federal prison, involuntary servitude. Felony offense punished by imprisonment up to 20 years or life imprisonment for certain aggravating factors. Civil penalties, generally less severe. Criminal penalties, civil penalties often involve monetary fines. Professional consequences for public officials. Violation of the public trust can lead to censure, official reprimand, removal from office, termination of one's public position, disqualification, permanent bar from holding any state position. Other penalties, restitution, payment to the victim or victims for damages. Community service, performing service for the community. Loss of privileges, for example, the loss of a driver's license, criminal record, a permanent record, or a conviction. Factors influencing penalties, severity of violations. More serious offenses such as bribery involving large sums result in harsher penalties. Whoa. I'm just reading it to y'all, okay? I like to read, except for right now with these migraines, which have been affecting me for days, got me nauseated and really sick. It's hard to see. My vision goes haywire. But, doing my best because, my dad passed away a few years back and I used to go to court and help people. Strangers, nobody I knew. It was just my thing. My dad knew about it and we'd talk about laws and Constitution and he liked to listen to me talk. and he liked it when I would show him stuff to read. And before he passed away, there was this thing I was doing, writing a book called Hell's Fury. And it's about some case I went through. And I had to stop pursuing my legal remedies because my life was threatened. Not just mine, but the entire family. So I had to stop doing what I was doing for me, but it didn't stop me doing what I was doing for people out there, I didn't know them. Lawyers used to get mad at me and tell me, mind your business. I said, well, when it comes to we the people, it is my business, just like it is yours. You took an oath to serve and protect. I said, true. And he just looked at me, it's in your oath. I said, you're literally coming to work every day violating your oath. And it says, you're not living up to the legal obligations to all these people in any court of law. And I said, let's talk about the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct. And they would start walking away, and how reporting misconduct is mandatory in either or by all lawyers and attorneys, and but I've helped people in criminal court, civil court numerous times. Tried to help people with child custody, managed to get help a few, made a good friend helping him get child custody, get him off that his wages were being garnished, paying child support for his child that he had with him, and another child his wife had with another man, and he was going through all kinds of legal hell. I mean, no matter what court you're in, you're guilty until proven innocent, and you must battle your way out. And when you have to hire an attorney, if your attorney isn't abiding by the rules of professional conduct, then that's ineffective assistance of counsel, and that's where the conspiracy against rights starts, because if your lawyer isn't going over their legal obligations, the court's legal obligations to you and to the public in general, which is described in the rules of professional code of judicial conduct, that's a deprivation of rights. Because in the rules of professional conduct, it clearly states that before anything can go forward in court, you need to give informed consent, and without the reasonable knowledge to make an informed decision to give that reasonable consent, nothing can go forward. So if you ever needed a lawyer for anything, use a lawyer for anything. Look up the rules of professional conduct, and you tell me, you ask yourself, did your lawyer do all of that? Granted, not everything in the rules may apply to your case, but all the rules apply to every case in every court of law. That's the common denominator, all right? That's the key element. It's universal in every court. All right, these are the legal obligations of all lawyers and judges in every court in the empire. I mean, the kingdom, or soon will be. But and we're getting further away. It's been 250 years. Almost since 250 years since the Declaration of Independence been written, and that's just as long as we as a nation have been living under the color of law. I mean, seriously, when the Constitution was first written, who had the right to vote? And it said in there, everybody created equal, endowed by their Creator. I mean, if everybody didn't have the right to vote. See, that's where things started changing. People started learning a little here and there, started learning to read and write, started to educate themselves, and the more and more people became educated, and the more they became educated, they started living up to the promises of the Constitution. And I'm not the only one that pushed this. Greater people than I have died trying to get this to happen. What I'm trying to get happen, Martin Luther King, in his speeches, one that always rings to my mind where he says, all we want, America, is to live up to what you put on paper. He was talking about the United States Constitution. Abraham Lincoln, his Gettysburg's Address, 7 years ago, our forefather brought upon this continent. And what they brought was the Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, the rule of law, and it's not being lived up to. That's all. Nobody's enforcing it. Nobody's enforcing the rule of law. You see what I just read to you? That's not happening. I'm just reading laws to you, okay? I didn't write it. And I've been pushing for this for a long time. For a long time. So I'm going to get into my case about Hell's Fury, but first I'm going to go over the rules and the codes. My headaches or my migraines are calming down. My vision is finally, I can literally sit here and read to you without needing to throw up. But I'm always glad to be there with you, for you. If I could, I'd be with you there right now. But the only thing I could do is read you the stuff I've read in my videos. That's what I would be doing. And everybody has the same questions, and I always give them the same answers. And I reposted them on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Threads. There's a lot you need to know. All right? And that's what I'm trying to show you. So that way you can get you some due process. You can get you a fair trial. You can get you effective assistance of counsel. And the only way you'll be able to obtain that effective assistance of counsel is if you acquire the legal knowledge to make an informed decision, to give informed consent. And that, the only way you'll do that is if you obtain the legal knowledge of a legal seasoned professional, a lawyer. You know, if we had lawyers that actually live up to the rules and the codes, and the only one that's going to get them to do it is you. I've been trying for years. I've been trying since 1979. Got left for dead in 89. That didn't stop me till they threatened my dad. And it just went down the line. The list just went down the line. But I'm going to kick that back in. My dad told me, finish what you started before he passed away. Let them know who you are. And when I would go to court, he knew I was going. Where you going? You all dressed up? And I says, oh, you know, it's a we the people thing. And he start laughing. Viva Pancho Villa, Viva Zapata, Viva Juarez. Yeah, he was born in Mexico, but see, my dad liked history, especially when I would talk to him about it. And we would talk about men of the people, for the people, put in position by the people. Oh, he loved it when I talked about Kazimierz Pulaski, one of my favorite people in history. He is my favorite person in history. One day I spent about 2 hours talking to my dad about it. My dad didn't say a word. He just sat back and listened. When he could remember his name. Viva Pulaski. All right, people. I don't mean to take up too much of your day, but I just thought you should know, okay, what the legal system is not telling you, and laws they're definitely not enforcing. You know, in a nation of laws, all laws should matter. And I need your help. Start using them. Go through my videos. I'm showing you places where you can use these laws against them. I've taught people what to say when they walk into court to get it tossed out. And it's one guy is doing it in family court, and it's slowly going to happen. The house of cards will fall. This guy in criminal court, I put a video up of him telling the judge, just do your job. It's mandatory to report misconduct. You know, you took an oath. Not citing my lawyer for ineffective assistance of counsel is violating that oath, and violating that oath that you took to serve and protect the United States Constitution is treason, which it is. Because he didn't just do it to that guy, he did it to everybody that went through that court. You know, they cut him loose, but the people that should have went to jail, they didn't go to jail. The judge is still sitting on the bench. The lawyers, the state's attorney, the public defender are still maliciously persecuting we the people. Cases that shouldn't make it beyond probable cause. And when they're thrown out because of no probable cause, the officer should be cited for filing a false police report. They do it just out of legal intimidation. You know, they know they can't get you on that, but at least they can run you through the ringer, and it's going to cost you some money, and not just from your bank account, but time off of work, which compounds the issue, and then parking, and then you'll be there all day. You know, it carries on and on and on. You know. But I'm showing you, I'm doing my best to show you a way out. And it's educating yourself. You know, I'm giving you a lot of shortcuts. You know how many years it took me to amass this information? In books? Books! You know how hard it was to get a hold of these books? They say, you don't need to know. I thought I needed to know. You know, the people with guns say, you know, well, it's better to have one and not need one than to need one and not have one. Well, it's better to know the law and not need it than need it and not know it. And that's what I'm teaching you. Okay, so I hope you absorb this in. And if you didn't, just look it up. For every law, there are penalties for breaking the law, the rule of law, the letter of the law. You know, and it's just that you're so used to people violating these laws, you think it's legal. There's a lot of things you think that are legal that just aren't, and they don't make sense to you. Lying politicians. You know, they can look up ethics violations, all right, for politicians. You can file ethics reports. And there's fines, penalties. There's penalties, fines, removal from public service, depending on the severity, incarceration. You know, there's also supposed to be ethics in the media. Look it up. Ethics in the media. Ethics in politics. But that's not happening. That's not happening. There's definitely no ethics in the courtroom if nobody's playing by the rules or the codes. You're so used to living under the color of law. And if you had the reasonable knowledge, the legal knowledge to make an informed decision so that you can give informed consent, none of this would be happening. There would be so much you're going through that you wouldn't be going through if everybody played by the rules and the codes. Due process did exist. If people could get a fair trial, if effective assistance of counsel did exist. But the only way it's going to exist is if you learn what I've been showing you. Read to succeed. All right? Every time I've gone through these things thoroughly, privately with people, I don't like this, but, it's over the phone. Always over the phone. And they get it. They get it. They always get it. And then they understand that once you know. There's something they can never take away from you, always have. Knowledge. And now with the power of the internet, the World Wide Web, today's library, he doesn't have to go through the law library like I did. I even did a video watching Congress and everything they were talking about. And I was telling people about these laws that they were breaking. Some people are saying, hey, this is not in the public interest. Look up that. Violating the public interest. Look up the public trust doctrine. Nobody's doing that. Basic obligations of public service. Nobody's doing that. If they were abiding by that law and the people that are supposed to lock them up, locked them up, Wall Street, wouldn't own the RNC and the DNC. But that's another story. I did a video on that. Corporacy. Nothing but love for you, my people, all of you. I don't care what state you're in. I don't care what commonwealth you're in. When it comes to we the people, y'all my people, all of you, one and all. Nothing but love for you. May your Creator always be with you. May you have a long life and good health. God bless.